teachings teach us how to become an altruistic being by using our own selfishness. Gradually, we need to understand, initially conceptually, and then on a non-conceptual level, that that egotistically speaking, for my own good, I need to be altruistic. So gradually understand that when we give to someone else, we are receiving more. And when we're able to go beyond this obsession of the I and the mind, that finally we're able to relax and feel better and suffer less. It's important to reflect often on this and gradually get to this conclusion. So inevitably, we are beings who are continuously relating to others. We're not solitary beings. We're social beings. Be it with the family or any other relationship in society, we relate to others. It's part of our human reality. And one of the most important points in our lives is the way in which we relate to others. I see situations and I'm not shocked because I know it's like this, but I sometimes just speechless because I see a situation where two people have a conflict or have argued and maybe years go by. And that conflict is still there. And it's interesting, something that I've observed, and I hadn't thought about it like this, is that when there's a deep conflict between two people, time doesn't necessarily heal. Time can allow to feel less pain or make space, but if one doesn't do something actively to heal, to look each other in the eye with love, to activate a process of healing, it's not going to come. That pain is going to stay there. Sometimes time allows this process, this healing process to happen, but one needs to do something. There needs to be movement from one side to the other, so to loosen that knot. This is something I realized just a short time ago with two people who at a certain point they were able to loosen these knots after many years. And even though so much time had gone by, it didn't mean that those knots had disappeared. And if we see often that the conflicts that there are between us, among us, this is what generates the most suffering. The conflict among us. We are very lucky. We live in a part of the world where nothing material is lacking. We have food to eat, even too much. The problem here is obesity, and that I shouldn't eat this and I shouldn't eat that. Our problem isn't, I would need this and I can't find it. No, we have food to eat. We have a safe and healthy place to sleep. We can take care of our health without important problems. We live in a safe place. We have necessary conditions. And so mostly I see that the sufferings come from either one's own desires that can't be satisfied, or very often the suffering comes from conflicts between people, among people, even with one's own parents, one's own siblings, getting also at work or with one's friends. And this is a point that leaves where there are many wounds, and the more time goes by, um, instead of forgetting, one stiffens. It's interesting that when two people fight, normally they're quite similar, even if they think they're very different in their attitude, etc. But something very similar they had when there's a fight, an argument between two people, is that the fact that each one of them, or the two, three, four people, no matter how many they are, they see the situation through the filter of themselves, the filter of the I and the my. And so, seeing only my own necessities, and you see your needs without seeing mine, and I see mine without seeing yours. So it would be difficult to find some common ground. Instead, when I allow myself to see you, that that brings up a big part of the solution. And if you too also see me, then there's no reason to fight. So the point is that a large part of our suffering comes from these conflicts, and the energy that we waste, that we use to so that things are the way that I want, so that the other is the way I say he or she should be, or for the world to be, for the world to correspond to my view, this is exhausting, and we use up a tremendous amount of energy. There are two things that really help us in this. One is where we're able to recognize that we live a reality that is impermanent. We live impermanent, interdependent. Everything is as it is as a result of a very, very complex result among many parts. And I am just a small, tiny, tiny part of it all. And I don't have clarity of how it all came about. And no matter how much I can try to imagine why, I'm never going to really know. Have you ever asked yourselves the why of something? Like, I was asking myself, why I had a why these last couple of days. We're here at the temple, we're having construction, and I didn't see them, and the construction workers, I didn't see them come to work. So I asked, where are they? What are they doing? I call and they're not answering. And so my mind, I ask, where? Why? But as I'm asking why, let's say, it's like a like uh, so many possibilities came to my mind. 360 degrees with all sorts of spirals in there. Like, they don't want to answer. Why aren't they answering? What could have happened? They don't like working here, but you ask me why. I don't know. I can have a thousand different thoughts, but in the end, I don't know. But today I actually learned that that the construction company didn't come these days because there's been there's been an increase. There's been an increase in price for materials, and so we're so for COVID, I don't know if it's actually for COVID, but so we're missing some materials for for the construction site. Hopefully next week we will have them. But what came to my mind is that I imagined so many things because I asked myself why, and when I ask the why of something, I'm able to see possibilities that are within the the parameters of my own imagination and my knowledge. And but when someone gives me an answer, oh, we didn't come because we didn't have this this material. I mean, well, why? Why is that material missing? And then you can to speculate and imagine all sorts of things. And so what happens is that when we find ourselves, when when we find ourselves asking, why is this like this? The correct answer is, I don't know. And any answer that do find, I'm only able to understand a part of the whole, which is never the whole thing because reality is very complex. So from our side, we should understand that we live in a reality that is very complex, and so we should be less attached to how the things should be, and not use up our energy in trying to change the reality in which we find ourselves, but we should use the reality in which I find myself for a future that I want, and it's not the way I want it. I just keep adapting. But one thing I know, that what I have in front of me are the resources that I have. Also because very often we suffer more because because things are not the way we think they should be. And we suffer more for that than for how things actually are. For example, I go to a restaurant. Okay, we don't go to restaurants anymore, but once we used to go to restaurants. So the example is, okay, I buy something online, and so something arrives, and I imagine that I had ordered something, but when it arrives, something else arrived. When I go to a restaurant, I order something, but when the dish comes, it's something different, and I'm upset about it. But it's not what I ordered. But this is not what should have arrived. It should have come. This is not what I wanted. I asked for. Or, but they could say, yes, it's true, but what you wanted wasn't there. We substituted this, and so we thought that this would be a good substitute. No, I'm still upset about it. So the question is, above all, we should ask for ourselves. Just imagine the scene. You go to a restaurant or you order something online. You make a request, and something comes that is different from what I had expected. The first reaction, is it positive or negative? Our tendency, obviously, I, I ask, if I ask for a piece of copper and they bring me a piece of gold for the same price, or if I order, if I reserve a panda and a Mercedes comes for the same price, It happened to me once that I bought something online. I ordered one computer for the center and two came. I called the reseller. No, we only sent one. I called those the transport company, the two who had the identical names. And anyway, it is at the end after calling so many people and sending emails to. So anyway, two computers came in, and and have not been able, even trying hard, to give one back. But normally our tendency is that when we order something in a restaurant, for example, if something different arrives, is our tendency is to be quite rigid about it. But instead, if we allow ourselves to see that often that thing is not so bad, maybe it was even better than what we had originally thought of or had originally ordered. But often we just don't allow ourselves. Why? Because we have a particularly strong attachment to how we think things should be. Our 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 own version of reality, let's say. Unfortunately, our version of reality is only our own imagination, and it doesn't correspond because we have a very limited knowledge and understanding of all the variables that exist. So often we suffer more because things are not how that, that things are not how we think they should be. We suffer more for that than for how things actually are. But when we allow ourselves to see the same situation, the same object, without that weight of how, according to me, it should be, then that perspective really, that point of view changes. We can make many examples. How often in our lives, something that seemed terrible, but then brought very positive results. I imagine this happened to everyone, and even the opposite. It reminds me of a disciple of ours, Vanessa from Argentina. One day she was in Búzios, this Brazilian seaside city. There were we have a Dharma center there, and I was giving teachings. She had gone there with her husband for summer vacation, and as she was walking, she was hit by a car, and she was, she was quite hurt, and she couldn't go to the beach. I mean, nothing too serious, but wasn't well either, and she couldn't really go anywhere. And then they saw, oh, there's a lama who's talking. Let's go see, and that changed her life in so many ways. And jokingly, she said, the best the best thing that's ever happened to me, the best thing that happened to me in these last years is having been hit by a car, because it brought so many. One thing brought another thing. Anyway, we can make so many examples. I mean, we don't really know what one thing will bring. Something seems negative, and then can bring many, many positive things, and vice versa. But it's important for us to be open to the possibilities and not stay stuck and attached to how things should be, in our opinion, but know how to imagine our future without the attachment of how it should be, and we direct ourselves towards that future, and in the present moment we should adapt ourselves constantly to the reality in which we find ourselves, the one that we face. Just the summary would be to have a high objective, a low expectation, and constant effort. To summarize, even with a relation, even in relating with another person or having a relationship with another person, how how heavy is the projection that we have our of the other person, the our expectations of the other, how we see them. Um, just think of someone. Just imagine someone that we have constant contact with. Maybe he does something for 3 days in a row, and on the fourth day, if he doesn't do it, you say, "Well, why didn't you do it?" We when he even feels upset about it. Isn't that true? So inevitably, when we get close to other people, gradually, we're constructing an image of how the other person is. But number one, the person doesn't completely correspond to that image, and the person is impermanent like us. So the person is changing. Today does and tomorrow doesn't. Today it likes, so tomorrow it won't like. We're not static beings. None of us. So it's important for us to remember that the other person is not and will never be what I think he or she should be. I can direct myself with through my interactions. I can try to influence the other. Um, you know, so to direct that person, I can try to help that person or interact in a way that's going to influence that person to be more joyous, more to be happier, etc. I mean, that's part of life. We're all influenceable. But the more attached I am to how the person should be, the more I'll suffer. So an important part is to not be attached to our idealized image of reality, which means the situations or people, etc. I think that I think this is quite clear. No, I've turned this around 3 different ways. I think it's quite clear. No. Another aspect instead is where we learn, and I say learn because it's not spontaneous and it's a process. It doesn't come from one day to the next. So where we learn how to see the needs and as a consequence the happiness and the suffering of the other as being as important as our own. Your needs are my needs. Your happiness is as important to me as my own. Your suffering is as important to me as my own. And the development of this is extremely important for an inner state of stability, of joy. And within the Buddhist tradition, it's called development of what is called in Tibetan Tseme Shi. Shi means for. Tse means like the, the, the number, quantity. So it's like not. So the immeasurable, it's without limits. It's unlimited. The the four. Often it's called the four. Un, the four unlimited meditations, but here we also have a problem of translation. It's not that the meditation is without limits. It's about familiarizing ourselves with four qualities that have no limit. So it's like meditating in the sense of familiarizing. So we familiarize ourselves with four characteristics, four qualities that are important to us. These characteristics, um, we all have these characteristics, but somehow they're limited. They are love, compassion, equanimity, and joy, rejoicing. The happiness for the happiness of others, the virtue of others, what's wonderful for others. We all feel love. We're attracted to happiness. Love is understood like this. I don't mean love like passion, like the passion that can exist between two people, like within a couple, for example. That, I don't mean there that there isn't love there, but they're two different feelings. When I say love, I mean it's the attraction to the happiness of the other, and I hope that that's also present within a couple. So attraction for the happiness of others is love. We have this love. It's normal that a mother is attracted to the happiness of her children, isn't it? There are people in our lives that when they're happy, that brings us joy. This is love. That we're attracted to their happiness. And then there's compassion, where we have aversion for the other's suffering. I don't want you to suffer. Even a mother, a father, children, parents, it's normal that one wants to avoid the other's suffering, has aversion for the other's suffering. That's translated as compassion. Then we have equanimity. Equanimity is understood to be seeing similarities and putting them on the same level. And we have a little bit of equanimity. We are able to see others who are like me, and I see myself similar to others. We have this equanimity, but it's limited. And we also have rejoicing, like a mother who sees a happy child, that generates joy. Normally, where there's love, there's also joy, there's rejoicing. But these four feelings, these mental states, call them as you like: love, compassion, equanimity, and joy, like rejoicing. They're limited. Limited by what? By our own selfishness. And when we say unlimited love, unlimited compassion, unlimited equanimity, and unlimited rejoicing, it's unlimited not because it goes to an unlimited number of beings, but it's unlimited because it's no longer limited by our own selfishness. Because today, and most of us, I say most because I can't say all, but most of us, when we love, it's a love that is limited by our own selfishness. Because as long as you're good to me, I love you, and then the moment you hurt me, then I won't love you anymore. So there's a limit given from my own selfish. Why do I love this one and not this other? For the good that this one does to me, for me, and um, and I don't love where it's not good for me. But this limit actually generates the inner conflicts, the jealousy, um, envy, etc. That then generate our suffering. So there we need to recognize the guilty for everything. how can I go beyond my own selfishness? One way is by developing these four qualities, unlimited qualities. It's something that we can't do from one day to the next. We need to gradually familiarize ourselves with unlimited love, unlimited compassion, unlimited equanimity, and unlimited rejoicing. Apparently, rejoicing doesn't exist in Italian. Anyway, so feel this feeling of joy that comes by seeing the virtue in another, by seeing the happiness in another. This this sparks a deep feeling of joy inside of us. Something that's very interesting, seeing these 4 points together, is that often we have the tendency to think that by developing compassion, that, developing compassion comes together with a feeling also of suffering. Because if you're suffering and I can see you and I see your suffering, how can I be fine? How can I don't know. Have you ever been close to someone that you love and with their their suffering? I mean, how can how can you be joyous being close to someone who is someone you love, someone who's suffering? Our 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 common way of being is to feel guilt. I remember in the biography of Milarepa at the beginning of his life when his father died, and he lost everything that he had. It was taken, stolen by his uncle, and his mother was his mother was mourning, and one day he forgot all of that, and they were walking, and he started singing, and the mother just really scorned him and said, "How can you be, how can you be singing when you're after everything that has happened?" So often that when there's this feeling of we're in front or faced with the suffering of someone else. I mean, how can I be joyous? But this feeling of compassion, understood like from what I've understood within the Buddhist teachings, is not something that should generate more suffering. But in reality, it brings us to a basis of joy, because love and compassion go directly are directly connected. Compassion at the same time is not it's not a feeling. It's something of action. Because if I have compassion for someone who's suffering, the compassion doesn't manifest by suffering for the suffering for the other, but it manifests by acting to help that person get out of his own suffering, and in that action one finds a sense of joy. It's happened to me, to be with people um, that I loved, with them, but they were suffering, and when I was able to do something for them, and it brought me a lot of joy. And instead, when I didn't know what to do, um, a certain amount of frustration can be generated because you see the suffering and you don't know what to do. So it's different from, it's this feeling of being powerless, because the more we're able to see the suffering around us, which is not it's not nothing, the greater the sense of powerlessness can come. But this sense of compassion is this strong, strong aversion towards the suffering of another. We see someone who's suffering, a being who's suffering, and we give the importance, as much importance to that person's suffering as we would our own. And it's important to understand that we're not abandoning, we're not abandoning our own needs and dedicating ourselves exclusively to others. I'm saying my happiness is as important to me as my happiness. Your happiness is as important to me as my own, and I'll do everything possible I'll do everything I can for your happiness and help you also avoid suffering as I will for my own. So when we talk about unlimited love, it's not that I am going beyond selfishness and I transcend selfishness and I do something exclusively for others against myself, forgetting my own needs. No. I'm not excluding myself, I'm including the others. I don't know if this difference is clear. We can't include everyone from one day to the next. We need to start with those who are around us, because to practice these four unlimited qualities every day in our daily prayers, where we say, may all beings have happiness and its causes, may all beings may all beings have happiness and its causes, may all beings be free from suffering and its causes, etc. These qualities are developed by beginning um, with the people who are in our daily lives. And that's where we need to train. That's where we need to begin. In the mind training teachings, it says to start with the 5 most difficult points. Where is it that I need to say, your happiness is important, your happiness is as important to me as my own, with my own family members, my parents, my children, my husband, my wife, my siblings, and the people I share my daily life with at work, etc. With my friends, not family members and not people with whom I live, but they're part of my daily life. And then people that I treated well, and in return they treated me badly. And then people with whom I have a strong aversion, even if I don't know why. So here, if we look, it's here where we need to look with great sincerity and say, your happiness is as important as my own. If we're able to do this with one person, really, and then after that person we can expand that to someone else, and gradually we'll be able to just keep expanding. It's said that there are 3 ways to do this, and described that it depends on the level of courage and strength and determination. On the simplest way, it's still noble, but one needs less courage, let's say. So one begins this process of developing of love and compassion towards someone for whom we have attraction. So a partner, a friend, a parent, a child, someone close to us for whom we have attraction. And so we start training by giving priority to the other person's happiness, giving priority to their happiness without wanting anything in return. Because when I do something for you, I am doing something also for myself because your happiness is as important to me as my own. Remembering always that we can't make someone else happy. So we can we can only interact to try to help the other person be better, but we can't do anything to determine somebody's happiness. I can't make you happy no matter how much I love you. I mean, all the holy beings, all the Buddhas can come. No one will ever be able to make you happy, make me happy. Only ourselves. We can only do that ourselves. So let's begin with one person. So this is the simplest way, starting with someone for whom we have attraction. The second way, a little bit more difficult, is about practicing with someone that we're indifferent to. So we have neither attraction nor um, um, neither attraction or aversion. I don't know, think of a long distant cousin, someone who's in our life, but we have neither aversion nor neither attraction nor aversion. And we try to relate to that person. We try to relate to that person, making their happiness as important as our own. It's not so easy, you know, giving as much importance to their happiness as our own. And the third level, the most difficult, where one needs more courage, is to do that same process with someone for whom we have a particular aversion. So take someone who, for whom you have aversion, and you cultivate love towards that person, allowing ourselves to giving value to that person's happiness as we would our own. It's difficult. But if I'm able to do with one, why can't if I'm able to do with one, why can't I do it with someone else? What's interesting is to get to unlimited love. It's not about the number of beings that I love, that I eventually get to an unlimited number. No, it's about going beyond a limit that is imposed by ourselves. And when I'm able to love in a sincere way, in a deep way, just one being, seeing that being for himself or itself, herself, independently of myself, and seeing that their happiness is as important as mine. At that point, I've gone beyond my own limits. And what's interesting that together with unlimited love comes unlimited compassion and also unlimited equanimity, because limited equanimity is uh, if I can love one, if I can love one, why not another? And then that brings automatically to unlimited equanimity, and then also to joy. I mean, there's so many difficult things in this world, in this universe. There are also many beautiful things. If I'm able to see you and your happiness is as important to me as your happiness is as important to me as my own, then I'm really happy for all the things that you have. And then I look to the next person and I feel the same. So when this deep feeling of love is developed, just even this love in itself brings a state of well-being. And together with that, there's also a sense of rejoicing and of, feeling joy for virtue and the qualities of another, which is absolutely marvelous. So for our own happiness, for our own peace, our own balance, etc., these are four qualities that should be developed. And naturally, they oppose our obsession to self-gratification. There's a practice that comes from Buddha's teachings, practice for thousands of years, that is relatively easy. And we do it in many different meditations, in many different contexts. I invite you to do it. Now I'm going to explain it to you. Because what happens is, to be able to develop a certain state of an inner state, it's not enough to just not enough just to want it, or we need to familiarize ourselves with it. We have to try. One of the best ways to familiarize ourselves is to use our own mental resource of imagination, because when we imagine something, we're creating an experience and not a concept. Because it's very different than when we experience something compared to when we understand something. So with visualization, we're creating experiences. Now I'm going to explain this meditation in a simplified way. What you should do, first of all, you sit down in a comfortable position with your back straight. Now I explain to you it, and then we can do it together, but let me just briefly give you this explanation. After having understood a minimum amount of a balance with your breath, etc., imagine that at the center of our heart, just imagine a point of light. That point of light represents our own mind in its most subtle form. This light is like the sun. It's something that emanates light, that expands beyond ourselves. And in this light, our intentions can be found, our feelings, and that light goes out towards those people that we talked about before. It can be the person for whom we have attraction or indifference or even aversion. Imagine that person. Imagine that light goes towards that person, and gradually the that as that light goes towards that person, the light adapts to all that that person needs, so that that person it feels better. And when we see that person, we try not to judge them by thinking, oh, you should be like this or you should do like that. No, the feeling is you exist and you are important for me, without entering into any kind of judgment of what you did, what you didn't do, what you should be doing, etc. No, simply, I want you to be happy. We allow ourselves to tell the other that we love them, and that their happiness is as important to us as our own. And gradually these light rays go towards this person, and we see them gradually relax and smile, and all of their tensions melt, and the person gradually reaches a state of peace and joy, and we see really the well-being of this person. And when we're able to see that this person is well, at that point, those light rays come back to us and they get reabsorbed back into our own heart. And as we do that, we feel just a natural joy in seeing the other person being so well. Is that hard? No, it's not so hard. I mean, technically, it's very easy. But it needs to be done with sincerity. So the more I do it, gradually I'm familiarizing myself. And what we'll see is that when I'm able to desire, when I'm able to desire the happiness of the other person, when I'm able to see the person free from his or her suffering, or free of judgment, but simply seeing the person and wanting their happiness, I mean, there the equanimity comes, and through this visualization, we're familiarizing ourselves with love and compassion and equanimity and joy. And what's important is that through this process, as these light rays come back to us, we need to rejoice. We need to feel the happiness of the other one being well. And so we start with one person, little by little we expand to another person, and then yet another one, and then to a third, and then gradually we get to a fourth. But but without the hurry of getting to all sentient beings, because often we say we send light rays to all beings, but all of these beings becomes just like a big crowd, a faceless crowd. Instead, I mean, it's something that's generalized, so, okay, I love everyone, I don't know who they are, but instead, these beings need faces. There's something should be behind all of this. So that's why we start with those we know. We visualize one, and then we expand to two, and then two becomes three, and then gradually we see, you know, we see that the more we give to others, the deeper this sense of joy we feel. But someone could ask, but am I really helping someone by doing this? Yes. First of all, yourself, and then personally, I think that the power of intention exists. I don't mean to say that by imagining someone without suffering, and then that person, that I'm able to actually take away immediately that person's suffering, or to get into any kind of power trip that we think that that we have this kind of power. But it's about developing these qualities within ourselves. This is the point. So. Buddha's teachings are extremely clear and also structured. I mean, every quality that we want to develop, every aspect, like love and compassion, etc., is structured in three parts: the view, conduct, and familiarization or meditation. In Tibetan, Pawa, Chöpa, and Gompa. The view is our intellectual, conceptual view about our path, understanding that egotistically speaking, it's better to be altruistic, that it's better to be altruistic. It's a mental process, and conduct instead is how I act daily with my interactions with others, and I try to act in a way that corresponds to my view. But there are times when where I conceptually I want I want to love you, but I'm just not able. May all beings, except those that that hurt me. Yeah. I've heard people say, oh, yeah, fine, you're supposed to love all beings, but how am I supposed to love that person who's done this or that? And then we have this tendency also, um, these we have these like idealized personalities, characters, for good and bad. I've seen a tremendous amount of aversion towards people that um, um, and the people that one has never met. I remember, for example, when I got to Italy, like half the country was just absolutely against this one politician, and then you would say, "Have you ever spoken to this person? Have you ever looked into this person's eyes? Have you ever sat down at the table with him? So how do you know really how he is? I mean, this is idealized, generalized image, and then there are people who have aversion to historical beings. Maybe those, people who, lived hundreds of years ago, we can say, well, that, we, we can say, I can say, this type of behavior should be avoided. But if I've never seen that person, I mean, how can I talk about this person or say anything about this person? But, here I'm deviating a little bit, but this helps. When we observe ourselves, are we 100% coherent, or do we have contradictions? Are, are we do only good things, or do we do only bad things? You know, you know, the, assuming that one has a clear idea of himself. I mean, do we, are we always, are we always kind and full of respect, etc.? Or do we also do things based on envy or anger, etc.? Also, relating with other people, maybe are are we, always kind, or always, do we always act in the same way? No. So, for example, based on like a behavior of jealousy, for example, am I that jealous behavior, or do I have that aspect? I mean, so if I, it's just an attitude that I have. So if I see someone behave in a certain way, how can I judge that person and say that that person is that? No, this is an action of that person, it's a thought of that person. It's not the person in completely. I don't know if this is clear. It's not always so easy to distinguish, but it's really important. So one thing is the person, and another thing is the thoughts and the actions of another person, which isn't the person. I mean, a person is made up of so many aspects. Now, getting back to where we were. Let's imagine someone. We desire this person's happiness, well, and we allow ourselves to relax in this state. If we do this for a while with a certain amount of constancy, then we're doing the process of familiarization, because even if I know I'm supposed to love everyone unconditionally, and even if I try to do it daily, I have my own limits. So I need to imagine situations where normally I wouldn't be able to, but in imagination I am able. So I need to use my imagination to love others, at least in imagination, and this inner process that's mental but not um, conceptual, this will gradually bring me really to develop love for everyone. So let's do this practice briefly together. And it's a practice that we do you can find it in all the sadhanas, or when we do the recitation of mantras. A sadhana, it has recitation, visualization. You find the same visualization everywhere, with more details, fewer details, but the basis is the same. And we can even do it also in a very simple way. So let's try to do it in the most simple way possible. So let's sit down in a comfortable situation. So let's sit down in a comfortable position with our back straight. Our shoulders are relaxed. Our head is relaxed. It's just slightly forward. Our mouth is relaxed. Our eyes are slightly closed, looking downward. And our awareness is on our breath. We allow ourselves to be present in this present moment. We inhale and exhale. Whatever thought comes to our mind, we don't give any importance to it. We bring our attention back to the air that we inhale and that we exhale. We observe at the center of our chest, the so-called heart chakra, a point of light representing our own mind, our own heart. And within this point of light, there's an infinite space. We observe the light as if we were inside, finding infinite space. We rest in this space. It's a deep feeling of peace that brings us joy. We inhale and we exhale. We observe in the space in front of us. We visualize a person. We choose someone for whom we have attraction, indifference, or even aversion. We choose one person. We allow ourselves to see them independently of ourselves. We see that this person suffers in the same way we do. This person wants to be happy in the same way that we do. With total sincerity, from the depth of our hearts, we allow ourselves to say, I love you. Your happiness is important to me. Your happiness is as important to me as my own. I'll do everything I can for your happiness. Inhale, exhale. We observe the person in front of us and we allow ourselves to say, your suffering is as important to me as my own. I'll do everything I can to help you to get out of your own suffering. From our heart, this point of light expands. It's a warm light. It's full of affection. It's loving light. It's generous. It touches the heart of the person in front of us. And imagine like in a gray day when a ray of sunlight warms up. Similarly, a ray of light from our heart absorbs into the heart of the person we have in front of us, and it fills them up. Gradually, person starts smiling. Little by little. Gradually the person in front of us starts relaxing his tensions and experiences a state of satisfaction. And they smile at us. We breathe in. And we breathe out. We allow ourselves to stay, to go beyond what that person is or is not for us, what that person does, what doesn't do, what they should do. You exist and I love you. Your happiness is as important to me as my own. These light rays emanate, they warm up the person in front of us and they bring them a state of peace and satisfaction, as if every pain as if every pain as it melts and the person reaches a deep state of satisfaction and peace. The person smiles at us with a very relaxed smile. And as we see the person smiling, we're not able to not smile ourselves. Gradually, these light rays, they come back and they're reabsorbed to our own hearts. And we feel this warmth as it comes back, bringing us a great sense of joy. We breathe in. And we breathe out. Your happiness is as important to me as my own. I deeply desire your happiness. I want you to be happy. And do everything that I can for your happiness. Inhale. And exhale. observe clearly the smiles, as if we could see the mind, the joy in the heart of the person in front of us. His light rays come back and they get reabsorbed into our own heart, and we feel a deep, deep sense of joy. Inhale, and we exhale. Inhale and exhale. Come back to our own hearts, where we feel this infinite inner space, a deep sense of joy. Gradually, gradually we open our eyes and we unite our palms. In this way, we've done this the very short meditation together that reminds me a verse that says, any being can reach the state of Buddhahood if he puts the right amount of effort in the right direction. We all have an enormous potential, marvelous potential, but none of us is able to realize something important, from one day to the next. It's a gradual process of familiarization. So I invite you really to reflect on whether the selfishness and the self-grasping is beneficial or if it's harmful to you. Maybe someone can get to the conclusion that no, it's working for me, and then we can open up debate about it, and I'd be very happy. I've always had fun debating with those who have a different ideas than my own, as long as they use logic. But we should really reflect on whether being selfish is beneficial to us or not. We should look at others, in our daily lives. If we go to a shop, we go to a store, we get to the cashier. It doesn't cost us much to look at the person in his eyes, her eyes. Someone we don't know, someone we know, and we just look the person in the eyes and say, without verbalizing, but we say, I care about you. I love you. Allow ourselves to see the other person. Asking someone how they are without it being a formality. That's not that difficult, not that complex, but beyond that, in our daily life, we should try to do this, and we should also take a few minutes a day and imagine a person, um, the, imagine someone that we can send love to, as we've done in this meditation together. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, a few minutes, you know, at, you know, once a day possibly, or minimum 3 times a week. But obviously, the more we do it, the better it is. So start with one person. We begin with one, and then we expand to another, and then little by little, we get to all the people around us. And once we're able to do it with the people who are around us, the ones we know, then we're going to multiply. Then I do it too. Then I visualize you, and then everyone that you know, and then it's a kind of it's a way to multiply the, the numbers. But we start with one, and when we talk about meditating on unlimited love, we start by visualizing one person, and we love that one person in an unlimited way, and then that brings us gradually to be able to do for everyone. And when one is really allows themselves um, um, to do that, it's not that difficult. You imagine the other, you imagine light, you imagine that the other is well, you imagine that the suffering disappears. It's nothing complex, and you'll see that gradually this brings you joy. So I invite you all to do this, possibly a few minutes a day, um, seated on your couch, or or um, sitting down on the couch, or walking. I wouldn't say, driving, because maybe you get into an accident and then it's Lama's fault, and maybe if you're in traffic, but as much as you can, try to familiarize yourself. Do this familiarization. Now let's do our dedications. I just remind you that this next weekend we will have 2 days of practice. We call sadhanas. There's meditations with recitations and visualizations, but in it's a kind of ceremony and prayer, but it's a meditation with recitation and visualizations. And so this Saturday we will do the practice of Tara Chittamani, and Saturday is the practice of Ushnisha Vijaya. Maybe I said a lot or nothing at all, but these are 2 practices that are done. Actually, they're both related to the archetype of Buddha, related to the feminine qualities. Tara is related to the qualities of realization, the mother of all Buddhas, and the second, Ushnisha Vijaya Namgyalma, is related to long life and overcoming moments of difficulty. So we'll do these 2 practices this weekend. The 18th, we'll do the practice of Ushnisha Vijaya, so that this practice, we also make lots of offerings of light and water and flowers. It's a practice that Lama Gangchen Rinpoche did for many, many years, from 1981. He did it every time at to commemorate the death of his master. And according to the Western calendar, the 18th will be the parinirvana of Gangchen Rinpoche. So we'll do this practice, the same practice he did for his own master. Now it's time for dedications.
in tutte le direzioni, qualunque corpo o mente, malato o sofferente che ci sia, possano essi, tramite il potere dei nostri meriti, l'energia positiva qui generata, raggiungere un oceano di felicità e benessere. Grazie a tutti.